say, if I do good and I'm a good person, God will accept me into heaven. They feel that is all that God requires of us. They feel that making the choice to give our life to Christ is the extent of which we should go. Matthew 5:13 says, "You are the salt of the earth," you referring to the believer. But if the salt loses its flavor, how shall it be seasoned? It is then good for nothing but to be trampled underfoot by men. So being a child of God is not just a title or a name tag, but it's an ingredient, and it's an ingredient that the world needs. By simply saying that being good and doing good is all it takes in our walk with God, we are meant to be trying to put this great, big, incredible God in a box. Matthew was a gospel that connects the Old Testament and the New Testament because of its emphasis on the fulfillment of prophecy. Jesus was teaching using sermons, illustrations, and parables. He showed the true ingredient of faith and how to guard against being ineffective and hypocritical. So let's look at Matthew 19:16. If you don't have a Bible, there's one in front of you. We're going to be in the scriptures and you want to be there. Matthew 19:16. And it reads this way, "And behold, one king said unto him, Good master, what good thing shall I do that I may have eternal life? And he said unto him, Why callest thou me good? There is none good but one, that is God. But if thou wilt enter into life, keep the commandments. He said unto him, Which ones? Jesus said, Thou shalt do no murder, thou shalt not commit adultery, thou shalt not steal, thou shalt not bear false witness, honor thy father and thy mother, and thou shalt love thy neighbor as thyself. The young man said unto him, All these things have I kept from my youth up. What lack I yet? Jesus said unto him, If thou wilt be perfect, go and sell that thou hast, and give to the poor, and thou shalt have treasure in heaven, and come and follow me. But when the young man heard that, he went away sorrowful, for he had great possessions. In our text, this young rich ruler is having a conversation with Jesus that I find to be very critical. And that is because the young man was rich. He didn't have to want for anything. And we find out that he believed that he was living right. He was keeping the commandments, but yet he still had a question. Now, how many of you have ever had a question? When I ask a question, it is because I want some information. There's something I don't know that I want to know, or there's something I think I know and I just need clarity. And with his initial question, he was looking for something more, and he was not prepared to accept such an elementary ethic. He deserves it. He was more spiritually adventurous than that. He deserves credit for the perception that there is more to serving God and finding eternal life than merely conventional morality. See, this young ruler felt that even though he seemed to have everything he wanted, and from the outside he looked like he had it all together, he felt he was still lacking something. He realized there was more to his walk with God. He realized there was a higher calling. There was more God had for him, and there was more that God required of him. So many Christians are walking around with dormant relationships with God that have seen little to no action since the day they gave their life to Christ. And rather than asking a question like this young man did, they're simply living. But Christ says, I came that you might have life and have it more abundantly. So the children of God are not merely just supposed to be living, but living life abundantly. So this ruler asked Jesus, Good teacher. Now the word good here means doubtless, most excellent, referring not so much to the moral character of Jesus as to his character as a religious teacher. It was probably a title the Jews were in the habit of applying to their religious teachers. Also, the word master here means teacher. So it says, Good teacher, what good thing shall I do that I may have eternal life? It was expected among the Jews of that day to believe that salvation was centered on works and not faith. What he was really saying was, Jesus, if I volunteer for Vacation Bible School this year, if I check out the mass choir rehearsal, if I give to a designated offering, if I go with the CC Carol Choir to the nursing home, if I attend a Bible study, if I go to to a youth retreat, if I cook something for Black History Month dinner, if I force myself to chaperone a youth event, if I fill out a prayer card, will I have eternal life? I mean, that's all church stuff, and Christ is the church, so that should be enough. I absolutely love Jesus' response to him. Look at verse 17. He says, why do you call me good? No one is good but one, that is God. See, the word good, when it's applied to human activity, can only be applied in its absolute sense to God, as a reminder that even the best of human efforts at doing good are inadequate. So what Jesus did before he got to the answer to this young man's question was he put focus and attention on God. So rather than giving him a list of things to do, hello, activities to attend, hello, or ministries to join, he puts all focus and attention on God. And I believe that many of us are trying to do things at church to make us feel like we're doing something right, when the missing factor in our work is God. See, Jesus continues to answer to this young man's question by saying, but if you want to enter into life, keep the commandments. Now, Jesus did not introduce the law to show the young man how to be saved. She wanted to show him that he needed to be saved. I have yet to meet a human being who has kept all the commandments. So I was thinking, Jesus must be up to something. You can't earn eternal life. You need God's grace for salvation, but you learn that only through having a relationship with God. The funny part to me was that the young man's response, he says, which ones? And the reason I say that's funny is because many of us do that. We look at God's law and we try to figure out, okay, what can I get away with? It's like when people read that fornication is a sin, they look around and see skanky music videos and love movies in a society that looks as if it has no biblical standard. So they ask, okay, all right, okay, God, I got you, right, look. If I'm not supposed to fornicate, right, how far is too far? And in other words, God, what sexual things can I do that won't upset you? Even when he says that sexual immorality is also a sin. See, we can't try to obey God in some areas and disobey him in others. We can't disregard the things that we find distasteful. So asking Jesus which ones was the wrong question to ask. Now, of course, the young man thought only of external obedience. He forgot about the attitude of the heart. But one part of God's law cannot be separated from another part. And to classify God's law into lesser and greater is to miss the whole purpose of the law. James 2:10 says, for whosoever shall keep the whole law and yet offend in one point, he is guilty of all. The law represents the authority of God, and to disobey what we may think is a minor law is to rebel against his authority. When Jesus replies, he gives him 6 commandments. He leaves out the first 4, which deal with unwavering love for God, and the 10th one, which deals with inner desire. He does this in an attempt to show this man the error in believing that he had kept the commandments. To me, it seemed like this guy wanted a comfortable answer. He was content with his life, but he knew there was more to his walk with God. But he wanted an easier way out. He didn't necessarily want to have to change something about his life. Does anybody know somebody who wants all of God's favor and blessings, but doesn't want to change anything about themselves? Yeah. Not anybody in here, but you know of somebody. See, when we get saved, it's new and exciting, but then we find out that the way we used to live has to change, and we don't necessarily want it to change, but we still want God to give us everything His Word says He has for us. See, we find ourselves feeling torn because we want more of God, but we didn't realize it would cost us some friendships. We didn't realize it would cost us our job. We didn't realize it would cost us our relationships. See, we wanted to somehow do what we wanted to do and still somehow be pleasing God. And we didn't realize that God knows what's best for us. So if He wants us to end relationships, switch jobs, or get rid of certain friends, it's because in order for us to grow into who He has called us to be, we have to make a move and get rid of the dead weight in our lives. But look at verse 20. The young ruler says, all these things I have kept from my youth, what do I still lack? Verse 21 says, if you want to be perfect, and when he says perfect, meaning complete in all parts, furnished, having no part wanting, and he wanted to be perfect, and this is what Jesus wants for him as He wants for all His disciples. He said, go sell what you have, give to the poor, and you will have treasure in heaven, and come follow me.